Hello everybody and welcome to the War Room. This one is for UFC 275 co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko against Taila Santos. Well, I mean, we're kind of searching for a fighter that can beat Shevchenko at this point. She's such a dominant champion that whenever a fighter gets put in front of her, you kind of go, oh well, how long is this going to last? And are they able to get into the fight at all? Valentina Shevchenko, of all the fighters in the UFC and of all the champions that we've had, Shevchenko reminds me the most of Demetrius Johnson. And I know that's an odd connection, but the rhythm of their fights is very similar. If you watch a Shevchenko fight, if you watch a Demetrius Johnson fight, it's very difficult to pick out highlights because they're consistent and they're, They kind of cruise. They kind of cruise somewhere between third and fourth gear. They'll step up if they need to, but usually they don't need to. But they don't ever go on like these mad flurries where they overextend themselves. They don't get wild and they don't give their opponents opportunities to get into the fight. Of course, DJ was caught a couple of times against some really high level opposition of it in his in his weight class, John Dodson and the like. But For me, Shevchenko at this weight class, I feel like she can do this to everybody. And that's kind of, I guess, why there's less interest around her fights. Same as there was with Demetrius Johnson, because he gives you so few options to capitalize on anything that it's almost a shutout. And Valentina Shevchenko has been shutting fighters out in her title reign. I mean, well, since she's been the title holder, she's, if it's not a unanimous decision, it's ground and pound from crucifix, and it's a very safe position. It would be ideal. It's the ideal fighting style to go into a tournament of MMA and have multiple fights in a night or multiple fights over a week. Like if Shevchenko was one of the fighters in the IMAF tournament, the amateurs, she would be fine over days and days of competition because she doesn't take damage, she doesn't take risks, and her opponents barely ever get into the fights. This could be very similar. This could be very, very similar. I'm excited for Taila Santos for a few reasons. One, because she's a powerhouse. Two, because I feel like she's got some grappling skills and the physicality to be able to cause Shevchenko issues. And three, because she's a Thai boxer, so her habit is to close down and meet attacks with attacks. Counter, hard counters, check low kicks, return low kicks, slip counter shots, block and counter shots. It's a very hard-nosed style. So Taila Santos started Thai boxing, I think, when she was 16. She ended up starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as she started mixed martial arts. So it wasn't like she did Jiu-Jitsu for a bit, did Thai boxing for a bit, decided to put them together. It was Thai boxing. I love Thai boxing. It's really fun elbowing people in the face. I'm going to need some Jiu-Jitsu, so I'm going to be better at elbowing people in the face. And now she's actually got really good Jiu-Jitsu as well. I mean, I've been impressed with her grappling skills. Even the one fight that she lost against Mauro Mirabarella, her grappling skills look good in that. I mean, she was threatening the rear naked choke in the first round. She just got a little bit overzealous and a bit too hittable. And if she falls into that trap with Shevchenko, then we're going to see the same thing that we always see with Shevchenko. I feel like Santos has got some skills that are going to make it more difficult for Shevchenko to be herself, but I still think that the technical ability of Shevchenko will shine through. However, if Taila Santos is able to get off on the right foot, if she's able to stay inside striking range without being too concerned about what's coming in her direction, then she can start to counter with Muay Thai. I feel like she's got power. I feel like she's got enough power to back up Shevchenko and to potentially hurt her. I also feel like her takedown ability and her grappling is enough to probably cause Shevchenko some problems at some point in those exchanges. I mean, if we look down the stats, let's have a quick look at the stats. So Shevchenko 22-3, Taila Santos 19-1. That one is a split decision loss over 3 rounds. Now Santos has never done 5 rounds as well, which is worth mentioning. And Shevchenko is an expert at going 5 rounds. And if you look at the times when Shevchenko has lost, it's been decisions to Amanda Nunes, who's a big powerful individual. So she can be beaten by a bigger, powerful fighter. And what I would say is, although Nunes is more powerful, she's probably a little bit less technical in the striking than Taila Santos. So there could be a balancing act there between not being quite as powerful, but being powerful enough to make the techniques count when she throws them. Regarding the ground game, and this is, I feel, where Shevchenko is going to be cautious about whether she engages her on the ground or not. I feel like her first primary game plan in this one is going to be to force Santos to miss as much as possible. And when you see Santos missing against Barella, you'll start seeing her getting a bit agitated and stepping in a bit more aggressively, and then she's getting caught with shots that she wouldn't get caught with if it was just a kickboxing match. Like, there was frustration against Barella because she was falling behind and she felt it because her corner team were telling her that she was falling behind. And therefore she took more risks than she needed to. She was more aggressive and more on the center line trying to pressure. You know, she wanted Barella back up against the fence where she could start unloading those Muay Thai strikes, but that put her right in the firing line of anything that Barella was throwing back, which wasn't anything particularly fantastic, but it was landing, and it was landing enough so when they came together and those clinch exchanges were quite 50-50, that the striking was starting to lean towards Barella on the scorecards. Now, in order to beat Shevchenko, you need to be a comprehensively well-rounded fighter. You can't have a really strong range in one area and then not much elsewhere. You need to be as adequate on the floor as you are on the feet. And if you're not adequate enough on the feet and not adequate enough on the floor, then you're doomed. Because if you're good enough on the feet but not on the floor, it'll end up on the floor. If you're good enough on the floor but not on the feet, you're never going to get it to the floor because she won't let you. This is, again, why Valentina Shevchenko reminds me of DJ. Because, and GSP, you know, another great champion. Someone that sees the skill sets that you've got and they go, okay, well, why would I play your game? I'm going to play mine. I feel like Taila Santos has got a bit of both games. I feel like she's got the Thai boxing to be impactful on the feet and maybe encourage Shevchenko to grapple with her, and then we'll see where her grappling's at. I mean, her takedown stats are very impressive. I was doing teletape, then I jumped off, didn't I, Jamie? So 22-3 for Shevchenko, 19-1 for Santos. Santos has a 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Striking output is relatively the same. I mean, everything about that is relatively the same, to be honest. Striking output, striking accuracy, striking defense. The only point of difference is that the level that Taila Santos has been fighting on and the level that Shevchenko has been fighting on. So those stats look stronger on Shevchenko's part purely based on the fact that the stats were gathered against a higher level of opposition. Average takedowns per 15 minutes, slightly higher again for Shevchenko, 2.62 to 2.44. But then you look at the takedown accuracy and takedown defense, and they're on Santos's side, 86% takedown accuracy. And she's not taking people down a lot, but when she is, she's successful almost all the time. And takedown defense at 88%. I mean, that's a championship takedown defense. And then, an average of a submission attempt per 15 minutes. Valentina's far more comfortable to put you in a position where she can win by ground and pound. She's become an expert at the crucifix, which is something that we see more in women's MMA over in one championship because they're allowed knees to the head. So, it's a really, really damaging position. But then, all the way back to the early UFCs, the crucifix position has been, it makes you so vulnerable. I mean, was it GSP against BJ Penn, Matt Hughes against BJ Penn, where he's just caught and he's just getting smashed in the face. You can't do anything to defend it. They're the moments where you don't have to be damaged or concussed. The referee just has to go, I can't watch you get punched in the face anymore. It's just too, it's too easy. Shevchenko, once she's in that position, I don't really think it matters who it is. Unless she's fighting out of her weight class, I think she's able to control anybody in that position. She's an absolute powerhouse. If she's able to do it to Jessica Andrade, who can boss out of most positions, she's going to be able to do it to Taila Santos. So if it hits the floor, Santos has got to be very, very aware of not allowing Shevchenko just to pass her guard, work to side control, and then establish that crucifix. She does seem a physically strong, powerful individual, Santos. So even if she doesn't have the technique to get out of some of those positions, she might have that physical power just to boss herself out. But that is finite. This is where technique always comes first. You need technique so you can save energy. If you have bad technique, you need to put energy in place to expend because the technique's not there. I feel like the technical ability of Shevchenko is going to have to be balanced somewhat on Santos' side by some physical effort. That is going to be a cost over 25 minutes. And because Shevchenko's so good at fighting over 25 minutes, I've got to favour her in the championship rounds. I mean, I've got to favour her all the way through the fight. But if I look down the people that Valentina's defended her belt against, I don't think I see anybody as dangerous as Santos. I mean, the nearest I would come is Andrade, just purely because of the horsepower that she's got. Santos, for me, has got the technical ability. She's got the height and reach, and she's got a well-rounded game. So it's not all about being a pile driver. It's not all about that. She can be a technical Muay Thai fighter. She can trip and take you down and stack you into the fence and beat you up and sub you. She's got options on the table that I don't feel like Andrade has. So this could potentially be the most challenging test for Valentina Shevchenko of her title reign so far. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, 19-1 could quite easily be 20-0. And if it was 20-0, we'd be hearing about that constantly. That one, for some reason, invalidates how lethal she actually is, and she is deadly. One other thing to consider as well is the way that Santos engaged certain fighters. So against Joanne Wood, she decided she wanted to stand and trade with her. She knocked her down, subbed her with a rear naked choke. Against Roxanne Modafferi, she was quite happy to take her down and grapple with her. That's kind of the opposite of the way that Shevchenko plays it. If you're a good Thai boxer, she's going to take you down. If you're a good grappler, she's going to keep you standing. Santos, much like what John Jones used to do back in the day, he goes, "What are you good at? I'm going to show you that I'm better at that." And that might be a bit of a trap. Because if she does start to play that kickboxing Muay Thai game with Shevchenko and she starts to miss and get frustrated, and Shevchenko finds herself in that rhythm where she can just cruise and pick and move, she can do that all day. And that's where we may see the frustration and the lack of championship experience on Santos's part coming out, because she might overextend herself and pay for it. I think, she can learn a lot of those lessons in the fight without getting knocked out, of course, but that accumulation and that fatigue and that frustration, and then all of a sudden she's on the floor in crucifix, it could spiral very, very quickly for her. But she could also really be a problem for Valentina Shevchenko. Of all the fights that Shevchenko's had recently, this is the one I'm most intrigued about. Lauren Murphy, bless her, I didn't really feel like she was going to have anything to offer. Andrade, it's always that, are you going to tread on a landmine? That's kind of how Jessica Andrade is. It's like fighting Derek Lewis. If you get cracked with one of his punches, then of course you're going to lose. But if you don't, you'll be fine. Jennifer Maia, decent everywhere, decent striking, decent jiu-jitsu. Didn't have the physicality to compete with her. Caitlin Chikagian, great footwork, great boxing, good jiu-jitsu. Didn't have the athletic ability to compete with her. I could go down and I can give you examples of all these things. I look at Taila Santos and I go, she's got good Muay Thai. She's been doing it for a number of years. We know that it's effective in mixed martial arts because we've seen it against decent level opponents. We've also seen her land submissions in mixed martial arts as well. That beautiful rear naked choke against Joanne Wood. She's also a physical specimen. I mean, she's muscles on muscles. So that is an additional strength that she brings to the table. So I think you get my point. I mean, do we expect Shevchenko to lose her belt ever? No, of course we don't. But is there somebody in this division that can cause her problems? Absolutely there is. Because we didn't expect Juliana Pena to beat Amanda Nunes. And this could be very much the same kind of circumstance. I don't think Shevchenko is going to overlook any of her opponents like I feel Amanda Nunes perhaps was with Pena. And the good thing is, you look at a photo of Santos and you're like, I'm going to need to train for this one because she's a monster. still, it doesn't take off the challenges and the dangers on the table for Shevchenko to negotiate. But this is why she's so interesting to watch. And the more problems are put her way, the better her performances and the better her fights are. But of all the people, like I said, of all the people that Shevchenko's fought, especially since the last time she faced Amanda Nunes at UFC 215, I feel like this is the toughest, best conditioned, most well-rounded fighter that she's faced. And that makes me very excited for this fight. All right, I'll see you next time.